Hey friends, I am so excited to share the first installment of Warrior Sessions with you. My special guest was Sheila Norgate. Sheila is a beloved elder artist here on Gabriola with decades of creative work that specifically addresses women's issues. And in our conversation, we cover a lot of really controversial and spicy topics. And I'm issuing you an invitation to watch this and listen and pay attention to how you feel and what you think when you hear what Sheila has to say. We're working towards empowering women, hence the name Warrior Sessions. And Sheila was a brilliant kickoff to this series. I would like to issue an apology to my video editing friends. There are some interesting moments in this. I'm learning a new skill. There you go. Feel free to follow along on my Melanie Teichroeb professional page. Despite the pandemic, my brain is still thinking of weird and crazy and wonderful things to write down and hopefully share with you someday. So I'm happy about that, and I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to help empower women. It's a small contribution, but I'm deeply honored to be able to do it. So, without any further ado, friends, I share with you the Warrior Sessions.
You did brush your hair.
Did you have a bath?
Yes.
Oh, I love you're in film noir.
Film noir. I think it's perfect.
I love it. Hi,
You
friend.
look, you look great.
So do you.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I'm nervous, and I realized it's because I actually care a lot about what's going to happen today.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That puts you in the best possible place. So that means it's real for you.
Yeah.
And that is what gets transmitted. So including the nervousness. That's all right. You know,
I'm
warriors.
excited.
Yeah, and warriors also are afraid, like, so it's okay. That's tolerating the anxiety and doing it anyway. There's your warrior right there.
Amen, sister. How are you today, my friend?
I'm good. I'm very good. Yeah, I'm excited about this. I've been doing some thinking about it, and reading and looking at other things that I've said over the years, about what we're going to talk about. But I also trust that we'll just be there with these marvelous women, and
Yeah.
and tell the truth as we know it. That's it.
Well, we're pretty good at doing that with one another.
Yes,
So
we are. Yeah.
And oops, stopped my own video. All right, here we go. All right, Sheila. First of all, let me just acknowledge that we are so grateful to be gathered on the unceded territory of the Snuneymuxw. It is a blessed piece of land that we all live and experience our lives on, and we are very grateful for that. So, Teichroeb. On that note, and in deep gratitude, I will carry on and introduce today's guest, Sheila Norgate, visual artist, performing artist, writer, feminist, groundbreaker, and my friend. And I'm so grateful that she's here to kick off the Warrior Session series. And today we're talking about the power of creativity and feminism. So Sheila, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so thrilled.
Oh, well, I'm just as thrilled to be here. Really, it's lovely to be asked, as they say. So yeah, I'm very excited to be here. It's a wonderful opportunity for me and for all of us. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dig in. I wanted to start with you because in my mind, um, and in my experience with the warrior imagery, the warrior foundation, it started with creativity. It started with an explosion of creativity and how that affected my life. And you and I have talked a lot about the impact of creativity on women's lives. So the first thing I want to ask you is, what role does creativity play in our lives?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I think creativity is, well, it's a bit of a charged word. It can be a bit of a loaded word um, for all of us, and I think in particular for women, because the bar is often set impossibly high for us in terms of what we determine is creative and what isn't.
Right.
If I had $1 for every time a woman said to me, I'm not that creative, and then she goes on to tell me everything she's doing, and I'm thinking, are you fucking kidding me? This is, so we need to knock off the capital C, perhaps off the word.
Yes.
For God's sake, women give life. They bear life. And I didn't, but but a lot of women do, and it is a miracle. And if that isn't creative, I don't know what is. But of course, I know that we're talking about other forms of creativity, but those are foundational creative. I think staying alive for women is creative. Honestly, it's that basic. I think in this culture, and it has been this way for 2.5 millennia. It's creative just to stay alive. I remember Rebecca Solnit. I don't know. I know you know who she is, and maybe some of the other women know who she is. Amazing, amazing feminist who wrote in her book Reflections on My Non-Existence. And she, at some point in there, she says that she knew as a young woman her task was going to be to stay alive. That was going to be her job. So it is that foundational. So creativity, maybe we think of as some icing on the cake, and but really it's integral to who every human being is. I mean, animals are creative as well, but we're talking about humans today. So, but I think it comes with a freight, especially for women. We're so quick to say, I'm not doing it right, and I'm not doing enough, and I'm not creative enough. And so, well, let's start by disarming the term a little bit and open it wide.
Okay. So then to that point, I would like to dial back into a conversation you and I had a week or so ago about creativity and using humor.
Mm.
And as I was thinking about today, and just also so all of you know, what I've done is I've structured each week's session around a word from my tagline from my play Shield Maiden. So today's word is funny. And that is a loaded word too, I think. It's loaded for women, and I think it's loaded for men as well. And so in our conversation a few days ago, we talked about taking the word funny and transforming it into the word playful, and addressing our creativity from a place of playfulness. Your work, both your visual, your paintings, your visual work, as well as your performance work, is really funny. There's so much humor infused in there, Sheila. So what is the power of humor or playfulness in your creativity?
Yeah, a lot comes up for me as I listen to you talk about that. Well, feminists have long been accused of being humorless. And I think part of it for me was just saying, fuck you. You want to see funny? I can do funny.
Yes,
And so part of that, all my life, I have used humor. As a girl, um, I did a performance piece a number of years ago here on the island. It was called Funny Girl because I grew up using humor. I tried to make my mom laugh. She was my first audience and my toughest room.
yeah.
I had a clinically depressed mother, um, going back many generations. And so she was a tough room, but I kept at it. And so I'm sort of joking about the feminist without a sense of humor, but not really. I do like to disprove all the mythology about feminism, um, and that's one of them. But feminism, humor is subversive. I think it's one of the best forms. I've been thinking a lot about how I've survived the 4 years of degradation in the White House by a certain orange-colored man, and who shall remain nameless. I what I did was I looked to comics to help me with that. I would watch the late night hosts, Stephen Colbert in particular. I love him. All of these people, Amy Poehler or Poehler, whatever her name is, Abe Poehler, I think. Anyway, I would turn to comics to help me make sense of this craziness, and um, and they soothed me. It was literally soothing to have their insight because they're political animals. All the best comedy is political, if you ask me. Although as a child, I did watch the Three Stooges, and there was nothing nothing political about this, and all the stuff they did.
Yeah.
And I love Carol Burnett and all the clowns. I'm a clown in a way, but I have become refined, and so humor it's what saves. It has saved me all my life, um, really, and it's given me a way to approach topics that are just too impossible without some um, relief that comedy provides. Comic relief. They do call it that for a reason. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, very much so. And there was a word that you used that I wanna highlight. I wanna pick this apart a bit. And this is the word subversive. And what I have found in in my work, my creative work, is humor when applied to things that are really heartbreaking helps shine a light into that shadow, but it gives people a bit of accessibility into the really hard bits. So there is nothing funny about sex abuse. There's nothing funny about, rape, murder, child abuse. There's so many things that that are not funny. And then when you and if you just said to people, okay, we're going to sit here and we're going to talk about your childhood trauma, people would shut down. You'd just see the blinds closing over their eyes, like in a house of cards falling. So I feel there's such power with, like what you said, that subversiveness. Um, how do you know? How do you know how to use your humor
Mhm.
and uh, when to when to pull back?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm thinking about my piece that I did last fall and on Gabriola and in Nanaimo, which you were at, Femme Noir. And that's an incredibly dark piece. It's
Oh, timing.
Yes, timing. I think it's an intuitive thing. I think it's I don't know if you heard this, but what I said was I use my own experience as a barometer of um, when to lighten up, when to bring people out of um, yeah, yeah, and when to not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because there is a lot of value in uh, letting people steep in the hard stuff a little bit. But it's that, like we said, the tension, the release, the tension, the release. Um, okay, and here's a question I want to ask you. What is the
Yeah.
impact What is the impact on women when they say they are not creative? So we're circling back to something that you said earlier,
Yeah.
the impact of not acknowledging
Oh, yes.
creativity within yourself.
Yeah. It's self-hatred. I think it's that strong.
Yes.
When we deny a piece of ourselves that is so fundamental to our human existence, we are have turned the weapons against ourselves, and it's a profound diminishment.
Yes.
Um, and we are trained to do it. That's why we apologize. You know, we're confessional. I think women. I'm very confessional. I've had to learn how to not be so confessional. Ready to apologize for existence. Um, so it's you can't separate the woman out from the conditioning and the cultural conditioning that has led us to where we are now. But yeah.
Yeah. And I can say for myself, really only allowing my creativity to come up in my very late 40s. I think you watched me for 10 years struggle on how to birth that creativity. And one of the things that I found, and that I'm hoping that we talk about later in the group, if you know, if this can be sort of fertile ground to talk about, is how scary it is to acknowledge your creativity, to acknowledge inner um, that inner warrior that says, I have something to share and say. I am going to risk failure because that's a part of, you know, what we do. It doesn't have to be a part of what, you know, everyone does publicly, but you could be trying a new creative venture and really not learning how to play that G chord on the guitar. You know, it could take a long time, but it's um, that willingness to find the strength to push against that apologist small self that says I'm not creative. So part of what I hope we can discuss a little bit later are the things that get in the way of our creativity and how to move those things, how to find that warrior strength and move those things out of the way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was going to say that I like to use the word voice a lot
Yes.
when I talk about creativity. Um, it may be a little easier to grok that we all have a voice, and it takes courage to use it
Yeah.
and to use the full range. I mean, of course, we have a voice, but our culture has a very narrow road that it would like women to walk on,
Yes.
and very, very narrow. It's really as thin as a razor's edge, if you ask me, the path that we're allowed to walk on, and the rest of it is subversive. So a voice. I think I may have told you this. I probably did, but when I was preparing to do Femme Noir, I had taken over a year and a half to write it and research it. It's all about violence against women, and the history of it. And I was in Nanaimo to speak with someone about taking it to Nanaimo and performing it there. And I had to run to the bathroom. I dropped everything came out of me. I was so afraid.
Yes.
I fear retaliation. It's how women are kept in place. And even though you might have one of the so-called good men, that is not, I'm sorry, but the culture, there's, you might find see, this is the thing about the male violence, is that we think that we're okay because we have a good one who isn't going to be violent with us. But every time, I just think it goes through all women. when a woman is murdered, for example, by her male partner. How could we not feel that somewhere in us? And we think they're but for what, go me, when really it's not that great. Your protection is flimsy, let's just say. It really is, because the rest of the world and out there, and even on beautiful Gabriola, little wedding cake Gabriola, has a terrible violence problem, male violence problem here. So I don't know where I was going with that. Oh, I guess except to say, yeah, fear of retaliation when we speak. I grew up very frightened. My father was my first exposure to violent men, and I was terrified of him. And I could hardly speak. So speaking out, saying what I think is truth is another word I like to use. I think we're warriors for the truth. That to me is my battle, is to be truthful to my experience and say what I can from that place. And it's frightening because there's the fear of retaliation.
Yes.
You know that woman who's written that book, I Hate Men. You introduced me to that. The French woman. She's like 24. She's living with thousands of degrading emails every day, death threats. So, if you think you haven't had any retaliation, it's probably because you haven't said anything that has irritated a man. So,
yeah. And there is, so that's a reclamation of power, finding your voice, using it to speak your truth. And there are very few people I know personally who do it with more grace and razor sharp wit than you.
Right back.
Okay, I'm just going to blow my nose and then I'm going to start letting these people in. Oh, here, excuse me. That's so rude.
There's probably a Zoom rule about that somewhere.
I'm letting you see it all here, Sheila.
That's okay. That's what this is about.
Behind the curtain.
That's right.
All right.